and welcome to The Forgotten Legion, the podcast for all your nerdy desires. I'm Aidan Fox, and this is my co-host.
Hey up, name's Aidan Finch, how are you?
Well, yeah, so, hello, welcome to our podcast. Been waiting for this for a long time, haven't we, Aidan?
Yeah, we sure have.
Yeah.
Goddamn parents.
It's not all your parents' fault, Aidan. It was also general
Mostly.
as well. Our part of saying we were going to do things and never doing them. But lockdown made me so bored I decided to sort everything out.
Yeah.
I'll say that you did not help. First of all, Aidan, I made the notes and Aidan has assisted with his own bit. However, the second point is explain the reference in the title, referring to the title of the episode. Did you get the reference? And I will say, if you don't get this reference, Aidan, I'll be very ashamed of you.
The end.
The
end.
I'm not sure whether you'll get. But if you don't...
The End Times? The End Times?
It's also the name of the first episode of one of our favourite TV shows. My personal favourite TV shows, and one that I know is one of your favourites. And that I introduced you to.
Oh, what is it? Oh, no. Oh, come on, what is it? I don't remember. The End.
Ooh.
I will know this. Give me half an hour and I will know this.
All right, we'll do this at the end of our intro and then ask you again. How about that?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So, Aidan, obviously we're doing this podcast. We're going to be publishing episodes each 2 weeks. You may know some of the episodes might seem a bit out of date, simply due to things like we probably, to begin with at least, won't be recording on a regular schedule. So it might be we'll record 2 episodes 1 week, and then we might not record for 3 weeks. Also, if you're not a Patreon listening to this, our episodes are released 2 weeks early for £10 patrons. You get extended episodes released 2 weeks early. We'll get into more detail about that later. But Aidan, do you want to just give us a brief explanation of what it is we're doing in this podcast?
So, the main thing we'll be doing is Warhammer 40k. And if you don't know what that is, get out, just leave.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. The main Warhammer 40k is, to me and Caden, is one of the biggest things that we collect and we love to do.
Yeah.
So Warhammer is all about a dark future of of the whole universe.
What would happen? A tabletop war game. Most of you will know it from that, but we are both big lore geeks, so we will go into the lore quite a bit. Probably a lot more than tactics. So if you're here for tactics, you might want to go to a different podcast. Not that we won't talk about tactics on occasion, but probably not often. I should also point out we're not just doing 40k, so even if you don't like 40k, keep listening because we will probably cover a fictional universe that you do like. You know, we both enjoy RPGs. We're doing lots of Dungeons and Dragons sort of stuff. Lots of video games like Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, World of Warcraft, lots of different stuff like that. And we will be covering all of it. But the main focus of this podcast is going to be on 40k.
Yeah, and also, if any of you have watched any of the Alien films, we'll also be covering that because I really enjoy those films and I really wanted to cover it, so...
Yeah. He sure loves...
We'll also be having guests as well, won't we?
Yes, we will, Aidan. So, yeah. Stay tuned and listen.
Right, one sec. Yep.
So, yeah, we're going to be covering all different universes. And Aidan has just informed me that he got the answer to the reference in the title. And any of you viewers listening, message us on Facebook or Instagram or on our Discord, anything, and tell us whether you got this. But no lying. We know. We can see into your minds, children. So, Aidan, what was the reference in the title?
So I did not get this at first, but I searched through my Netflix pretty much, and I remembered that it was Red Dwarf, and which is a great show. If you haven't watched it, do. And actually, the first episode of Red Dwarf is called The End. So that's a great reference.
Great gag, because the first episode is called The End, and on the opening credits it says The End, and then at the very end of the episode it says The Beginning before the ending credits. Right after Lister's infamous line, "Look out, Earth! The slime's coming home."
Yeah.
So if you've not watched Red Dwarf, watch it. Honestly, I'm always open to talking about Red Dwarf, people.
Yeah.
I dare say there'll be many an episode based on Red Dwarf.
Yeah, it is on Netflix, so if you have Netflix, you can watch it on that. You can buy DVDs, probably cheap from eBay or something. But if you have Netflix, do watch it.
If you have Sky box sets, I know it was on Sky box sets not that long ago, so I imagine it still is on there. Yeah. It'd be on that BritBox thing, because it's a BBC show / Dave show. And yeah, honestly, obviously earlier on Aidan said that if you aren't a fan of Warhammer 40k, get out. Obviously he wasn't being serious then, but when I say if you're not a Red Dwarf fan, get out, I am being serious. That is going to be your one and only warning. Before we jump outside your house with a knife and we cut your headphones.
Yeah, try to keep it kid friendly.
So we're going to be doing all sorts of discussions based on stuff like that. And yeah, got some big plans, some big plans. So next, just we'd like to first just talk to you for a bit, just support us on Patreon. Again, like I said, we'll go into more detail of that in a minute. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram and join our Discord. Discord links I will put in the description, provided I remember. And if I don't remember, please bombard me with hateful messages until I do remember. Also, if you don't have Facebook or Instagram or Discord, none of those things, then you can email us at theforgottenlegion.podcast@gmail.com. That's theforgottenlegion.podcast@gmail.com.
And before we continue, does that have capital letters, Caden?
Emails don't have capital letters, Aidan.
I don't know.
No. It's also got no hyphens in. The Forgotten Legion is all one word. So, yeah, and message us. We're always open to a chat. If you message through Facebook or Instagram, it will just be me who respond. Discord is very much community-based. Messaging us, you can also message other people in it and discuss what you like about this podcast, and we will be paying attention. Also, I have allowed you to PM other members, which will include me and Aidan, and also the podcast in general. So obviously you can PM Aidan personally, PM me personally, or message the podcast, in which case we'll both. Also, Aidan, will you be willing to look through any of the fan emails?
Hello?
Yes, Aidan, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, my internet. God damn it.
Yeah, so would you be open to reading through fan emails with me, Aidan?
Yeah, as much as possible, because my family is we're always quite busy. We've got a big family, so I've got to take care of kids. But yeah, as much as possible, I will.
Yeah. So email us, touch both of us. Facebook and Instagram, if you do message us through them, it will probably just be me responding, simply because Aidan does not have Facebook nor Instagram. I believe, Aidan, you don't, do you?
No, I am not allowed it.
Yeah. So you can message them through there. However, you will be talking to me. However, yeah. Message us. Yeah, we want to build up a bit of a community, and support us on Patreon. It does help. Next, I would like to take a brief moment of your time to shout out my other podcast, Tack News, which is a lot less nerdy podcast. It is a podcast that I do with a different mate of mine called Tom Bratton. Great bloke. We release it seasonally. We release 14 episodes per season. So each season, we release 14 episodes, and it's just me and Tom sitting down and talking about a different subject, be it relationships, YouTubers, video games, whatever. We've done episodes on anime and all sorts. As of this time, we've yet to publish our first season. However, we are well on our way of making it. So if you're listening to this in the hopefully not so distant future, check out my other podcast. Also, I am currently in the process of starting my own YouTube channel, which will do many of the same things of this, having a YouTube format, so you will have video. I'll also maybe do gameplay of me playing things like Skyrim, World of Warcraft, or stuff like that. So if you are interested in getting even more of me, then follow that. And the last shout out we have, unless, do you have any shout outs, Ada?
No, I just want to say before you carry on, shout. If I get to convince my parents, I will make sure that I will be able to show some gameplay. I play a bit of Fallout. I don't know. If you want me to play a game that I will tell Caden to put it up, saying what games I have, and I will do some gameplay for you if you want to see me play these games.
Yeah,
if I'm able to.
My YouTube channel is just called Caden Fox. It is linked to the Forgotten Legion YouTube channel, which you can listen to our podcasts through. So go check that out. And like Aidan said, I may also get some gameplay from Aidan that will be put on either channel, I'm not sure. And one last shout out I will say is, well, probably the podcast that inspired me to make this podcast, and Aidan has just started listening to, and is the only podcast Aidan has listened to, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes. I didn't even know podcasts existed until then.
Until I asked him to be a co-host on a podcast, and then I recommended this one to him, and that is Lawhammer. It's a 40k lore podcast. Absolutely amazing host, very friendly. I know I've gone messaging them at about 2 o'clock in the morning, which, considering they're Canadians, only 5 in the afternoon to them. However, I've gone messaging them 24 hours a day. They respond, they make great content. They've provided much of my knowledge of the Warhammer 40k lore, and I imagine they'll provide much more to yours, Aidan, as you continue your journey into their episode.
Yes.
If you don't already know them, go check them out. In all fairness, I haven't actually even told them that I will shout them out. I've spoken to them, and I mentioned that I was starting a podcast. However, I have not actually told them that I was going to do this shout out. So they know nothing of this. This isn't even paid. This is literally just me being honest and saying, go take a look at them. Honestly, without them, I don't think I'd have started this podcast, and Aidan wouldn't know what podcasts are.
I would still be clueless in 30 years' time.
Yep. So, Aidan, is there any YouTube channels and or podcasts you want to shout out?
Well, actually, I am saving up for a VR headset, which you know about, don't you?
Yes, I do. I know much about your life, even things you don't know.
Yeah, so... But anyway, so I'm saving up for a VR headset. My dad wants to do a channel because he has lots of classic cars. He likes classic cars, so he's going to do one on that. And he says I can do one. So if I do one, it will be on VR gaming. And hopefully I will try and make it as kid-friendly as possible. But there may be some explicit things. Otherwise, yeah, it will be as kid-friendly as possible. So please, I'll tell you later on in the future, in a future podcast, if I do get the channel up. And please go and check it out if I do, because it will, hopefully it will be fun, it will be funny. I'll try and get some of my friends involved as well. So yeah, go check it out.
That's good. Yeah, very good. I'm excited to see if you do manage to accomplish that aim. Yeah. So now, let's just give the fans a brief explanation of how we got the ideas to a podcast. Now, we've already gone through this much, so there's no point spending too long on it. However, as I've loved Warhammer and things and RPGs, I watched quite a few YouTube videos on the topic, quite a lot of painting ones, all stuff like this. And then one of my favourite painting YouTubers, Miniac, declared that he was starting a podcast called Trapped Under Plastic, which is an alright podcast. It was the first podcast that I listened to, and I listened to that. Listened to about the first 3 episodes, and I've not actually listened to any more of it. Honestly, it's very good, especially if you like painting. However, I'm not the greatest painter. I'm not even particularly good painter when it comes to models. It's not something I amazingly enjoy. I more just enjoy looking at the tutorials and watching people paint. But that's really good, and that was the first podcast I listened to that introduced me to podcasts. And I just typed in on Spotify Warhammer, and Lorehammer came up. So I listened to them. Also listened to a few others like Dungeons and Daddies, D&D Story Dungeon that I'd watched the YouTube videos before, but recently they moved on to also publishing on Spotify, so I've been listening to them through that as well. So after a while, mostly from Lorehammer's influence, I decided I wanted to start my own podcast. So I decided that there's all podcasts, where it's a single host, are absolutely rubbish. So I asked my best friend, my only friend, Aidan, my co-host. And so Aidan, why did you agree?
The main reason I agreed is, first of all, I had no choice. I'm joking, of course. He had a knife up to my throat. No, he...
It's true.
And it was a balloon one.
Your throat.
To clarify.
Anathema. Quite clearly anathema.
Yeah. No, honestly, I thought about it and I thought, it's probably going to be fun, and so far it is.
Yeah. I'm sat in the cupboard sweating my face off. You're sat in your bedroom sweating your face off. Talking into a microphone and at a wall with a computer on. And you're talking at your phone. So great. Next, just another brief moment for our Patreon. Explaining our Patreon. Now, honestly, this intro is a lot longer than the other one, so we're going to get into the main topic a lot quicker than usual. I should just point out. It's just there's a lot of stuff to cover at the minute. However, explaining our Patreon. So our Patreon is great. The money does go back to the podcast. It will help us get better mics and all things like that. Not to mention it makes happier hosts, and it shows that you enjoy this podcast enough to give money. And you do get lots of great rewards. The rewards may not seem that great at the minute, however, we are hoping to add more in it, maybe in a year's time or so. If we're able to, we might get merch that you might get given.
Yes, that's what I was actually going to say, merch, because
if we get
merch is merch is
we may be able to get some merch made. That will all come because of Patreon, because we don't run ads in this podcast. Like in my other podcast, Tech News, we do run ads. Having this podcast is ad free. So Patreon is our only source of income from this podcast. We don't get sponsorships. Well, if you do want sponsors, we will give you a shout out. However, we won't be making proper adverts, nothing like that. So, however,
please get Patreon.
Yeah. We do 3 tiers. Our £1 tier, where you will get access to our Patreon only Discord, which is a second Discord that is just for patrons. We'll run more competitions there through Discord. We will I'm hoping that eventually I might end up running an RPG through Discord. All of that through the Patreon only Discord.
And you guys will be playing with the one and only us two.
The one and only us two.
Sorry.
Yeah. Also, you will get a mention in our episode. You'll get a shout out. Hopefully, in the beginning of each episode, we will read out a list of any new patrons. And finally, for a £1 one, you will get the £1 Patreon rank in our main Discord server. So simply message us through Discord on the main server, tell us your Patreon name, and then we will give you the £1 rank in our main Discord server. Then in our £5 tier, you get access to extended Patreon only episodes. So at the end of each episode, there will be an extra section that is just for £5 and £10 patrons to listen to. Plus, you get everything from the £1 tier. Finally, we have a £10 tier where you'll get access to extended episodes, and you'll get them 2 weeks early. So when you're listening to this episode, even if you're listening to it the day it was released, no, this episode was available to those patrons 2 weeks ago. Plus, they had an extra bit on the end. Plus, again, everything from previous tiers. So, yeah. Support us on Patreon. The money goes a long, long way.
Sure does.
10 people giving us £1 a month. That's £10 a month. In a year, that's 120 quid. Think what 120 quid could do for this podcast. Think of the equipment we could get. Think of, the software, or stuff like that. So, keep that in mind. So just before we go on to our main section, we are going to just explain our main topic today, which is basically just explaining how we each got into the hobby, or hobbies, depending how you see it, as we are into multiple hobbies. It's not going to be our full life story. It's basically just going to be how we got into the hobbies and just getting to know us a bit. I think a podcast's always better if you can relate to the hosts. Also, please email or send us your stories of how you got into different hobbies, as honestly, I love those stories. Stories of how someone can get roped into a world of mystery, even if it is just a made-up world. And also, for our Patreon-only topic, entitled Getting to Know Us Better, we have a list of questions which we're going to ask, such as what are our favourite RPG characters and what are our top 3 fictional universes, including a fun game that we're going to be playing. So if you're a £5 or £10 patron, Make sure you say after the end of this episode. And that was a disturbing sound that I just heard. But anyway, on to our main section. Hey, Adam? So, our main section, Adam. Let's jump right into it, shall we? So, first of all, as I've been in the hobby long, when I got Aidan into the hobby, I will begin. I always was a bit of a nerd, loved Star Wars since a young age, and got deep into the lore of all different universes, even when I was like 9. And one memory I have is arguing with my dad when I was 9-ish. I might even have been younger. But sat in the car arguing with my dad over what midichlorians were, which, as far as I'm aware, is not normal 9-year-old behaviour.
That's true.
I'd mostly say that I mainly became much of a nerd and got into lots of fantasy and sci-fi and all stuff like that a lot later on. And when I first got into Warhammer. So a bit of background, my uncle Jim, which is my dad's best friend and has been for years, has been into the hobby for years, about 21 years now, and he lived with my dad for years and years. However, he kept his figures in his room, so I never saw them or anything. However, my dad moved up to Glasgow when I was 11. However, whilst the house was being prepared, he lived with my uncle in my uncle's new house for a bit. And because it was my uncle's house, he'd put his figures in the living room. So for the first time, I'd properly seen these models, and I just fell in love with them. And the thought of gaming with models and playing massive battles really spoke to me. So I started doing lots of research and found out that there was 2 ones, Sigmar and 40k. And originally, I decided that I wanted to get into Sigmar. I loved fantasy, and even now I would say I prefer fantasy over sci-fi. So yeah, and I thought that was epic, the Age of Sigmar stuff. And it just happened that it was my birthday a few days later, and I had some birthday money from it. So I went to the local shopping centre and got lots of stuff, and I decided that I wanted to get something to do with Warhammer, something to start me off. So I was asking lots of the shops if they had any Warhammer figures, and eventually a person in the works said that their brother was into Warhammer and that there was a Games Workshop just outside the shopping centre. So I went there and I told the shopkeeper that I was looking to get into Warhammer 40k. No, sorry, Warhammer, and I did not specify which one. So he must assume I meant 40k, because then he passed me a magazine called Getting Started with Warhammer 40,000, with including a Space Marine figure on the front. And I didn't know that this wasn't fancy, and to me, the Space Marine looked like some sort of fancy knight. So I got it without much thought. It only cost me £5, and I went. Obviously, I soon realised that was a 40k magazine, and by that time I was hooked. And it was then, and the next time I went to my uncle's house, I spoke to my uncle. I showed him this Space Marine figure that I'd got, showed him my magazine, and he thought it was great. He gave me the main rule book, and I sat next to him and looked at all the different armies, and he said, pick an army. And he said, your first army, you're best just picking by what you think looks cool. So I looked through it, and I decided that I liked Death Guard. And it just so happened that my uncle had a Death Guard Codex. He did not play Death Guard, but he happened to have a Codex, and also the 3 characters from the Dark Imperium box set, the Lord of Contagion, the Nauseous Blightbringer, and the Malignant Plaguecaster. So he gave me those models that I made there with him, which was quite fun, and we didn't have instructions. However, so I had to figure out how to do it myself, and that was great. And then we played our first game that very evening. And I sat down on his floor with him, and he taught me how to play an army of entire substitutes. And all my models were just picked by what looks cool. And eventually, well, I say eventually, to me it's then like half an hour, but according to my dad, it was 3.5 hours. I won my first game, which I don't think many people can say that they won their first Warhammer game against a 21-year veteran. I did. And by this point, I was proper hooked. Played another game with him, went to a game store with him and all sorts over that weekend, and got so hooked. And now my dad's quite jealous because I spend more time talking to his best friend than I do to him. As I still see my dad often, despite the fact he lives in Scotland. I just tend to go up and visit him in holidays. But most of the time over text, I talk to his best mate more because it's 40k. But yeah, stayed in hobby, tried to get a few different mates of mine in. None of them particularly got hooked. Eventually, my mum would look to see if there was any gaming clubs nearby, and she couldn't find any. I live in quite a rural area, and obviously I'm not going to give away my exact address. However, I live in a quite rural area of England, and the nearest Games Workshop to us is about a half an hour drive, and even that's only a small one. So it's not the greatest. And my mum looked for ages and couldn't find a game store. And then one Christmas, my step-granddad, Neil, had a quick look on Facebook, and after 5 minutes, came back with Louth Strategy Games Club. And that has completely made my overstatement useless, that I wasn't going to give away my exact location. But anyway, Louth Strategy Games Club was only about 15 minutes away. So I started going there. And first week, I believe I played a Fallout board game that had just been released at that point, which was quite fun. And then the second, and there's a Facebook chat which you will message if you want to have a game next week, and someone will respond. If I had not been invited into the Facebook chat by the second week, so I showed up with nothing to do. And I was offered a place at the RPG table, as they tend to have RPGs going on in one room and Warhammer going on the other. We played Cyberpunk 2020, and I loved it. Got me into RPGs, and then the very next day happened to be the first day back at school. Well, I went looking for someone to play an RPG with, and I found Aidan, who agreed to play an RPG with, and we've been playing RPGs at school nearly every day since. Also, at this point, I got into watching YouTube videos on Warhammer and things. Eventually got into podcasts, and I got into a lot more world and things like Magic the Gathering, World of Warcraft. Despite the fact I was always into Skyrim, I got a lot more into the lore and all sorts, and that has very much taken me up to where I am. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a background about me, the sort of person I am. And yeah, Aidan, how would you describe your descent into nerddom?
Well, I don't know what age I was. It started a very long time ago, really. I started watching an anime called Yu-Gi-Oh, the original one. I don't, if you guys haven't heard of it, or if you guys know it, it's really good, actually. Caden's not fond of it. He's not really fond of animes, but I enjoyed it. But eventually, my best mate from primary, I showed it to him, and he found out that you could buy cards for it on Amazon. So I bought my first starter deck, which I believe was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal starter deck, which I just got hooked from that. I collected for 3 years. I stopped collecting for 2 years, and now I've got back into it again recently. But for a couple of years, I wasn't really into other stuff really. I think it was until year 9 when I'm truly started becoming real good friends with Caden.
It was
becoming
good friends, Aidan. It was just after the Christmas holidays.
Ah, yes. So just after the Christmas holidays in year 8, we played our first RPG together, which we always have a quarrel with this. I always say it was the futuristic one, Apocalypse. He always says it was the fantasy one, but
our first RPG was a fantasy one. It lasted about 2 days, and we decided to do a post-apocalyptic one.
Yes, which was probably my favorite RPG. One of the most favorite RPGs I've ever done with you. That's probably the best one we've ever done.
One. That lasted about 6 months. Bear in mind,
yes, I did.
Food breaks and lunches every day for 6 months, about an hour a day for 6 months.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it. I was addicted. But eventually, I believe one PE lesson, you said to me, "Hey, have you ever heard of Warhammer?" And I was like, "No." So you started. At first, I was a bit reluctant to get into it, and you started telling me about the lore, and I was a bit like, "Actually, this doesn't sound that bad." And then you showed me your Demons Codex, which as soon as I saw the front page with one of the Khorne blood letters, I was just, I needed it. I just needed the models. I just wanted to collect.
Yeah.
And originally I wanted Khorne, but until you and then one day you brought in the main rule book, and you showed me all through all the armies. You practically did what your uncle did and just said, "Which ones do you think look cool? Pick that one."
Yeah, because you'd gone on about collecting the demons. However, eventually you'd sort of gone a bit quiet about it, and for a couple of months you didn't really say anything about it. So I decided to bring in my main rule book and get you to pick an army. And what army did you pick, Aidan?
Well, of course, when he brought it in, at first I was still Khorne demons, but then I fell in love with the beauty of the Biomoths of the Hive Mind, the Tyranids, which, honest to God, I still love to this day, and I am still trying to collect. Recently, I haven't collected that much. I probably only have about 100, maybe 200 point army. Actually, probably more than that now I think about it, since I've got the Swarm Lord, which is about 300 points on his own.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy collecting, and I believe not long after that, I joined the Laos Strategy Club.
You joined the Laos Games Club before getting into Warhammer, because you'd had a few RPG sessions there before we played our first game.
Oh, yes, I do remember that, yes. So I went there, and I think, was it Dungeon World, our first RPG?
Yes, it was Dungeon World, because you played that really weird druid.
Yeah, yes, I played.
Turned into a hawk all the time. Like you were drowning and you'd turn into a hawk.
Either a hawk, a bear, or whatever I could that was big and scary.
Yeah. But yeah. And
then
I should just say.
Yeah. And then we had our first game.
Aidan has a lot less Warhammer than me. He's very much into the lore and things, but model-wise, Zen only has like probably 400 points or 500 points, I'd estimate. I have roughly 5,000 points of Death Guard and about 1,500 points worth of Orcs, which, although isn't that impressive, it's still more than Aidan, so me.
Yeah. But anyway, my first game, we both played Death Guard, didn't we? You split your Death Guard army in half.
Yes, because
which
you're going to play against Tyranids. However, your Tyranid Codex hadn't arrived in time.
Yes.
So we played Civil War.
Yes, which I lost miserably.
You got tabled by the second round.
Yeah, of course, my first game, even today, I'm not the best player, and I do try. It's probably because Caden's playing longer, and he probably puts a bit more strategy than I do into it.
I've only ever beaten one other person, and that was sheer luck of we were playing with the tactical objective cards, and they kept on getting horrible cards.
But a couple more games later, and I got my first model, and my first model was the Trinifex, which I enjoyed, and I mean, I enjoyed making that model. And then
It sounds so romantic, Aiden. I just have an image of you then making out with each piece of plastic and then sticking it together with your saliva.
But and then I got a couple of Termagants, and then the Swarm Lord, which still to this day is my favorite model, because I don't know, I just love the lore behind the Swarm Lord. I just love his story.
And I made you a base for that Swarm Lord, didn't I?
Yes, you did, and honestly, it is amazing. Probably one of the best like custom made stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah, so although I don't do painting, I do love terrain making and doing hero bases. And I made Aiden an epic hero base which has 37 skulls on it.
Yes. And even one of them is a Termagant or a Hormagant, depends on how you see it.
Yeah, there's Kroot skulls on there, Tau, Human, Tyranid. It looks more like it's a base that you'd expect on a Khorne model.
Yeah, pretty much. But if you think about it, the Swarm Lord is the strongest Tyranid. He has fought through 3 tyrannic wars and died in all 3, but we tend not to speak about that.
Yes, for speaking of the Swarm Lord's defeat is a sin against the hive mind.
Yes, because even I am controlled by the hive mind.
Yeah.
But so yeah, really.
Anything else about your story you'd like to say?
Not much really. Just that we played a few more games, and then I had to stop going to the club, didn't I? Because my mother didn't want to transport me due to the times of the actual club.
Yeah. A bit of a late drive, finished at 9 o'clock. So with that,
and it was a Sunday as well.
Yeah. So understandably, she didn't want to, and she told Aiden that he could bike there if he wanted to, but Aiden can't be bothered to.
Pretty much. But recently, because of lockdown, we have the Discord server open, and I'm hoping if we can get something sorted out where I can be there online or something.
Either that, Aiden, or you just man up the courage and start getting better at biking.
Yeah, put on that cardio.
Yep.
But nah, not much happened after that. I stopped playing, and I probably actually stopped a bit of Warhammer. Really, probably only for a couple of months though. And then we and then recently I've got back into Yu-Gi-Oh again. So like I said, good anime, watch it if you want to. And the card game is just as fun as it's exactly the same as the series. So the card game's fun to play.
Yeah, you just got
Hayden, you played a couple of games, haven't you?
Yes, I haven't played a couple of games. I enjoyed the game itself. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of anime and things, and the actual animation itself looks a bit weird to me. And and the stories seem really quite cheesy to me. But the card game itself is quite fun to play. Like I also play Magic the Gathering, and we tend to have taking turns playing games of Yu-Gi-Oh! Then Magic the Gathering, don't we?
Or D&D. Well, most of the time it's D&D, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like our main section. That's just a bit to get to know us a bit better. So we're just going to do a few last closing remarks, sort of things, and then, well, we'll leave your ears in peace from this horrific pain we're putting them through.
True.
So again, support us on Patreon, really helps. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Discord, and message us. All stuff like that. Really, really quite good. Sorry about background noise if you can hear that. Simply the just general background noise.
Yeah, family.
Yeah. So yeah, support us on Patreon, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, join our Discord. Discord, I'm hoping, is going to be the main one. I'm hoping to do quite a bit in that. So yeah. Any closing remarks to do with getting to know us a bit better, Aidan? Or anything in this episode so far?
Closing remarks. If you are getting into Warhammer, I do recommend, because Caden gave me...
Any hobby for that matter.
Yes. Caden, or any hobby of that. Do your research, because without the research that Caden helped me do, he even gave me the book, Getting Started with Warhammer 40k, the same book he had. He even gave me a Space Marine that he had, specially painted, and he gave me a couple more Space Marines later on.
Yeah.
And yeah, just do your research before you go straight into it, because if you don't like it, then it's going to be a waste of money, really. So you want to make sure you like it, and if you like it, I recommend you getting it. It is an amazing hobby to do. Other hobbies, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was, do your research. It's a good hobby. The gameplay can be quite fun, can be hard. You can do competitions. Even Warhammer, there's competitions, isn't there, Caden?
Yeah, and don't go thinking that you have to... Like, Warhammer has so many different aspects. It's got painting, it's got lore, it's got gaming, all these different aspects. Don't go thinking you have to love all of them. For example, I personally, I am not that bothered about competitive play with Warhammer. I like the thought of it. However, I'm happy just playing friendly games. And
yeah,
just don't go take every aspect of each hobby.
Yeah, because I enjoy playing the friendly games as well. I really enjoy playing games, and actually really want to play one soon, maybe, if we're able to, Caden.
Yeah, we could always, we might be able to meet up, and I have plans on possibly devising some way to do a Warhammer podcast episode. Probably creating some sort of grid for the game, and doing some sort of quite descriptive narrative sort of idea to good for the listeners. But yeah, and just if there's a hobby you're looking to get into, do your research and do it. And also just remember, you don't have to like everything about the hobby. You know, you can love 40k, but you're only really interested in the lore. You're not bothered about any of the models or anything. You know, you still like 40k, so why does it matter if you don't like the models? Don't go thinking I have to get the models because I like 40k. No, you don't. Or equally with Yu-Gi-Oh! You could like the anime series, but go, I'm not particularly interested in the card game. It's all good. So just before we go, we have a big plan for our next 3 episodes, don't we, Aidan?
Yes, we do.
So we do a series.
Yes, we are.
On it's better. The Elder Scrolls or Fallout.
Ah, yes, of course.
So
now, I am the Fallout fan.
I'm the Elder Scrolls fan.
So, we're going to argue pretty much in 3 episodes, which is better.
Well, not necessarily. We're going to do one episode on Fallout, including the lore, gameplay mechanics, or stuff like that. One episode on Skyrim, or all the Elder Scrolls games for that matter. Mostly the same thing, and then an episode comparing the two. So a 3-part series declaring which is better. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. I'm hoping we might be able to get some sort of impartial judge for the 3rd episode where we compare them. However, I don't know. I do have one person in mind though. I don't know who it might be, so I don't.
So do I.
Name to get the hopes up. But yeah. Finally, just to tell those of you who are patrons, our Patreon only section today is us answering a few questions, and we have a fun game to play. So if you're a patron, listen to that, and even if you're not a patron, subscribe and listen to it. It's not too much. £5 a month, to say that you're supporting our show, and the bonuses you get. Hopefully, we'll have more bonus in the future as well. It's not too much of a bad deal, really. You get that warm, fuzzy feeling inside knowing that you're supporting us. So, do you have anything else to say, Aidan?
No, not really. Just that. Hope you enjoyed our first episode. Of course, we've had a couple of technical difficulties. My internet's gone down a couple of times. Background noise. But hopefully that wouldn't put you off, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, we will. Get that all
ironed out, and with support from Patreon, hopefully we'll be able to get better mics and get better sound quality, or stuff like that. But yeah, I'm feeling hopeful for this podcast. What about you, Aidan?
I am actually. So hope you enjoy. The next episode will be coming whenever we can be bothered to record one.
Well, we're going to be releasing the episodes each 2 weeks. We don't know an exact date, and whether we do an exact date, we don't know. We're not going to be recording on a schedule ourselves. However, we will make sure there's an episode each 2 weeks. Just a brief warning to some people, though. Not all the episodes, not necessarily all the episodes will be both of us. If anything gets in the way, it may just be one of us, which obviously is not desirable, and we'll try and make sure that happens as least as unoften as possible. However, that may happen from time to time. But yeah, so with that, I'm happy to sign off. What about you, Aidan?
Yeah, I'm happy to sign off. Hope you enjoyed the video video. Hope you enjoyed the podcast.
And well, yeah.
Join us next time.
Join us next time. If you're a patron, stay tuned then. Goodbye.